Hey guys, this is Samir for Digit.in and today we have with us the Honor 7. This is a very hyped phone. There was a lot of hype around it before the launch, during the launch, and even after the launch we've seen a lot of requests for reviews and information about the smartphone. So we thought we were going to get you an absolute in-depth video review of the Honor 7 to see how it performs. So this is Huawei's, Honor. Honor is of course a part of Huawei, but this is Honor's flagship, or rather flagship killer considering its price point, the Honor 7. Let's get started with the build and the design. Now, as you can see, the phone really isn't very thin. It is about 8.5 mm in thickness, and I actually don't mind that. It gives the phone kind of depth, especially when you use it for typing. Coming to the body, it is the smartphone is completely aluminum. It has an aluminum build around it, and this actually gives it a very premium feel. If you look at other smartphones, for example, when the OnePlus One was launched, it was very unique because it had the sandstone back and the phone was built quite well. Now, this isn't the first all aluminum phone that we have seen, but considering its price point and the way it's constructed, it is a really very well built phone. Moving on to the front, as you can see, it has a very clean front, thick bezel at the bottom, it's thin on top. You have the front facing camera along with the flash and the earpiece. The display is quite simple. I unlocked it with my fingerprint sensor, which we are going to get to in a bit. But as you can see, the navigation buttons are a part of the display, something that we've seen on Nexus smartphones, and it has a relatively clean candy bar form factor when it comes to the front. Now, when we move to the back, you can see it has, of course, the Honor branding. In the middle, you have the fingerprint sensor along with the 20 megapixel camera and the dual tone LED flash, and the back is also very clean. It's got this kind of gunmetal aluminum finish to it. Of course, it's built aluminum, but it has a real classy look to it. It looks really good, the smartphone. Now, coming to the sides, we have the standard power button, which is slightly textured, so it's easy to identify, especially if you're someone that's hunting for the power button straight out of your pocket when you lift the smartphone, above which we have the volume rocker. Now, coming to this side, we have the SIM card slot. It's a dual SIM smartphone, but remember, the second SIM card slot also doubles up as a micro SD card slot. So in case you're looking for two SIMs and expansion, well, you aren't really sorted. And of course, out here we have the smart key. Now, what this does is you can actually assign certain functions to this smart key. So when I unlock the phone and I press the smart key once, it'll open Facebook, because Facebook is something I access a lot. If I press it twice, it's going to open Google Maps. I'm really bad with roads and I need Google Maps, and it's going to open Google Maps. And of course, if I press and hold the button, it's going to open Google Now for me, as you know, I really need my dose of Google Now. Right now it's actually assigned to open the Google Play Store that you can see. I was tinkering around with the settings, but most of the time it would open Google Now. So that is when it comes to the build and design. On the top, of course, you have the headphones jack and an IR blaster. The IR blaster is a blessing in disguise because it comes with a preloaded universal remote app that we will get to in a bit. The bottom, of course, houses a micro USB port and the speaker grills. Of course, only one of them acts as a speaker grill. There are two grills, and the audio from the speakers is loud enough. So that is the build and design of the Honor 7. Overall, considering the price is about 23,000 rupees, what you get is a very well built smartphone, something that can actually give premium built smartphones a run for their money. Now, coming to, of course, the user interface and the display of the smartphone, I'm one that personally prefers stock Android, and the reason I prefer it is because it's clean and it's easy to use, and of course at times it doesn't consume so much RAM. We have seen Sony, Samsung and LG come up with their own versions of user interfaces on smartphones running Android, and they have evolved over the past 5 years, bringing them up to, let's say, an acceptable level. But what Honor has on this Honor 7 is something they call the Emotion UI. It's called the Emotion UI 3.1 that's running on this smartphone, and I have to say that it is really good. I have very few complaints. Now, as you can see, there is no dedicated app drawer that we've seen on Android in the past. All the apps are listed on the home screen, just like we've seen on iOS or on Xiaomi smartphones. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing, as you can club apps into folders as and when you like. So for example, I have all my messaging apps under one, and if I want to add another app, I can just click on add and choose an app. or I can actually find the app that I'm looking for and add it to a particular folder. So let's say if I want to create a folder for all my games, I'm just dragging and dropping all my games into one folder, as simple as that, and I can rename the folder as well. I have renamed this one messaging and put all my messaging apps together under one roof. You can do the same. If I want to club all my benchmarks together, I can club them together in another folder. It's really nice, it's nifty, it gives the phone a more personalized custom feel to it. Now I would just like to probably show you the messaging app, which I have actually switched to stock Android. The keyboard that comes by default is actually SwiftKey keyboard, which I personally am not very comfortable with. I prefer the stock Android keyboard, and that works really well for me. You can change the keyboard as per your preferences. There are of course a lot of keyboards available on the Google Play Store, so if you like a particular third-party keyboard that you are comfortable using, you can get that as well. So overall, the user interface of the Honor 7 is good. It's different from what I've used on other Android smartphones, and it isn't that bad that you would like to go back to stock Android, but it does have its own set of unique features. Coming to the unique features, the Honor 7, of course, as you can see here, the notifications and the shortcuts menu is different as well. You can scroll in and add a bunch of shortcuts and edit them as you like, which is great. But what I'm going to talk about right now are a bunch of unique features that the phone has. So let's say you're stuck on the home screen right now. All right, and just to give you a visual reference, you have the fingerprint sensor, which is at the back, and when I move my hand down on the fingerprint sensor, I can bring down the notifications menu. This might seem gimmicky to some, and I personally haven't ever used it in real world usage, but the fact that you can do such things with a smartphone is great, giving it a more customizable, a more personal touch, if you will. Now, what I really want to talk about actually comes up in the settings. Now, you have a lot of options considering one-handed operations. Of course, the phone isn't really that big, so it's easy to use with one hand, but it does have dedicated one-hand operations as well. Motion control, something that I absolutely never use on a smartphone, but you can flip the phone to put it on mute. You can pick it up to reduce the ringing volume. You can actually raise the phone all the way up to your ear and it'll answer the call automatically, so you don't have to go through the effort of pressing a call, or if you're in a meeting and your phone starts ringing, you just flip it without actually fumbling with it to put it on silent mode. So these are a few nifty features. There's of course shake to rearrange the apps, which you essentially just shake the phone in front of you and all the apps will get rearranged. Double tap the home screen. You can double tap the home screen to actually wake it up, something that we've seen on the OnePlus smartphones, and it has become second nature to anyone who uses double tap. So let's just show that to you right here. And we double tap and the phone wakes up. Of course, it goes to the lock screen if you have it. I'm just going to put my finger at the back and whoops, this is the first time we've seen that many tries on the fingerprint sensor. So sticking with the fingerprint sensor, it is of course placed right below the camera. Now, Sony recently announced the Xperia Z5 and the Z5 Premium. Both of them house the fingerprint button on the side along with the power button. That's a unique placement because you touch your phone on the side, but of course you hold the phone this way, so a fingerprint sensor on the side also makes sense for a smartphone like that. The OnePlus 2 and let's say the iPhone 6s and the 6s Plus have the fingerprint sensor right in the front where the home button is at the bottom. That, according to me, is slightly inconvenient because when you pull the phone right out of your pocket, you can just touch it right at the back right here. And I'm just going to show this to you. And from the back, I just touch the phone and it unlocks. It's really snappy. It's really fast. The first time I configured the phone, I think I might have configured my fingerprint a little bit wonky in a manner of speaking because it didn't work almost instantly. And then I went and reconfigured both my forefingers, and as you can see, the phone just naturally unlocks. It's so seamless. I never have to see the lock screen unless, of course, I restart the phone. We have spoken, of course, about the user interface and the other aspects. So let's move now to performance. Now, of course, being this gargantuous computer that this phone is, it has to do something really basic like make calls. And I'm happy to say that in all my call tests, the phone worked perfectly. The earpiece is fine. The volume is fine. Even at full volume, it isn't blasting loud. There is very little audio leaking. So if I'm talking to someone and someone's sitting right next to me, when I put the volume of the smartphone right there on full for the calls, as you can see, I've set it to about 80-85% out here. That's where it's absolutely perfect. I can hear the person very clearly and no one sitting around me can hear my conversation, or at least what the person I'm talking to is saying. So the earpiece works fine. The microphone works fine. Overall, the phone actually does have a great appeal to it, especially coming to the price point. Now coming to, of course, the IR blaster that I said. One night I was sitting at home watching a movie on my Western digital media player and the battery of the remote died. Now, All those of you that own a Western Digital media player know that there are no physical buttons on the system itself. And I happen to flick my phone and find this app called the Smart Controller. And as you can see, the only item I've configured is the Western Digital DVD player. It was very simple to configure. The downside, however, is when I tried to configure my air conditioner is when I actually faced a little bit of a problem. Okay, of course, because of internet speed, it is showing you the loading. But the disadvantage is I have a Daikin air conditioner, and when I tried to sync it, it asked me to 66 times press the power button on the smartphone so that it could recognize which frequency or however it determines it could find the air conditioner. We're just going to show you. It asks you to press the power button 66 times. So I actually have to point it at the air conditioner, press the power button. If it doesn't recognize, do this process all over again, which was very tedious. It's much more simpler just to download a third-party app that is a smart remote functionality on your smartphone, and that actually works pretty well as well. But the fact that this is natively built into it worked perfectly for me for my Western Digital media player. Moving on to other performance, of course, it isn't the best benchmark performer because the smartphone isn't running on a Qualcomm or a Broadcom or on any other popular SoC. It is working on Honor's own SoC, which is an octa-core processor, and for the most part it gets the job done. If you're playing games, multitasking, running heavy apps on this device, it gets the job done. It's quite fluid. We will show you some gaming performance in a bit, but the point being that if you're someone who is a power user, the power under the hood of this device, be it even the 3 GB RAM, the GPU and the CPU, are all great for everyday as well as power performances. I have even done something as simple as typed an entire article that I was writing on the phone while I was in a cab journey, and the build and the keyboard and the fluidity of the phone, be it multitasking from Google Docs to the websites or my research material, worked fluidly well. Coming to, let's say, a few of the cons now, since we've praised the phone so much, is the 16 GB built-in storage. With the number of apps that I've installed, let's see if the notification is still here or I've actually removed it, but I keep getting a pop-up notification that says built-in storage is full, you need to remove some apps. Because I have a lot of heavy games. I have GTA, even the likes of GTA Modern Combat, Dead Trigger 2, I even had Asphalt 8 and Need for Speed on the device, which, oh, they're still here. So Need for Speed is here, Asphalt 8 is here. So I haven't really gotten down to deleting them, and the storage is full. The 16 GB built-in storage is where it's really going to hit you. Coming to the heat problems on the device. Now I'm going to talk about the battery life, which is great, as well as the heating issues. Now what I actually did one day was I traveled throughout the city covering a few tech events that were happening, which meant my GPS on the smartphone was on, as well as I was clicking pictures and tweeting out the events live. I started out from my house at 9 o'clock in the morning with about 92-95% battery, and by the time I got to office at 6:30 in the evening, I still had 33% battery left, which means the battery life on this phone is absolutely great. It's been kept switched off for some time now, and you can see it still has 74% battery, and it's been off for about 5 days, and it was at about 90% when I shut down the phone and put it in the drawer. Of course, I think somebody came and switched it on, because when I found the phone today morning, it was on. So in the past 5 days, whenever someone switched it on, the battery has still come up. The battery life is good. Moving to the camera. Now let's just show you some of the camera samples that we have clicked on the phone. The camera quality is really good, be it for daylight situations or even night situations. So this is a well-lit situation where we've clicked a creative speaker that I'm using on my desk currently, or even to show you a little bit of shift in focus. As you can see, the Surface tablet that I've clicked a picture of, the Windows icon is in focus. You can even see specks of dust. We've actually transferred these images onto a high-resolution monitor to judge them, and they're really good. But just to give you perspective, you can see how the power brick at the back, which houses all these plug points, is out of focus, and the Windows icon, which I wanted to be in focus, is in focus, which shows that you can actually generate some good depth of field with this camera. Low light performance, the camera does take a heartbeat longer than we'd like to click that picture, but as you can see, this is a picture clicked in a bit of low light, and it is still quite clear. Batman, or actually the Arkham Knight in this case, still has some clarity. As you can see, when we've zoomed in on the smartphone itself, there is a little bit of loss of detail in low light. There is some noise, but of course we haven't used the flash or any other filters. This is the smartphone's internal image processing, which has worked in low light conditions, and it is fairly decent. These are some of the tests samples that we use to judge the camera, you can log on to digit.in and take a look at a detailed article that we've written about the camera's performance on the smartphone. These are of course well-lit situations, and if I go back, you can see how Far Cry 4 is written in detail. There are some added details to the characters, crispness is there, and let's go back to the same image in low light conditions. You can see Far Cry is less white, it's actually just less bright because of it, but the image still managed to retain some details. That was of course because there was a little bit of natural light there, but it was still low lit enough for, let's say, a cafe that you're going to go to in the evening and would like to click some good pictures from the rear facing camera. Moving on, this is a selfie, and you can see the front facing camera. Even though the tube light is off, we've just used the phone, there was of course a little bit of light on the side, but there are enough details on the skin tone. So yes, the camera does function fairly well. Again, another example of low lit depth of field. Another thing that I would actually like to highlight out here with the camera is that this is the closet where I keep my games and my controller, and it's fairly dark, and I have focused on the game, and the exposure is good enough that you can actually read the names. Yes, there is noise and loss of detail, but the quality of the rear camera is very good. The next image is going to have the Xbox logo in focus, where the background is of course darker, and focusing on the logo itself, you can see that the distribution of light, the way the shutter works, the way the camera works, it's just beautiful, especially if you like clicking nice pictures from the rear camera. This is another example where I focused on the light source in the room, everything else was dark, whereas I focused on the glass, and you can see a little bit of lens flare. I personally like the lens flare effect simply because it adds a creative touch to the photo, in a manner of speaking. This is again commuting home from the windscreen of my car, and the image detailing is fairly good enough. Yes, when you zoom in, it was a traffic jam, it was still, you can see a few rough edges, but then again, if I can read a number plate of the car in front of me zooming in quite well, or even let's say the car that was really ahead, I can say that the camera on this phone is really good. Coming back, even performance like gaming, we've played Asphalt 8, Need for Speed, some of the really high-end games, even GTA Vice City, which was once upon a time a console and a PC game, works really well on this smartphone. So what is the bottom line? What is the verdict? All I've done is praise this smartphone, but is it really worth the price tag of 23,000 rupees? Well, if you're looking for a very well constructed phone running on Android 5.1 Lollipop, with its own of course user interface on top, then this is the device for you. It has a good build, good display, good camera, and overall great performance. Where does it fall short? Well, it falls short in the department of storage. 16 GB built-in storage will get over really fast, especially if you're someone who consumes a lot of media and stores it locally. If you carry your movies library with you, your music library with you, and a lot of games with you, you are going to have to invest in a micro SD card, and you will lose out on that second SIM card slot because it doesn't have a dedicated micro SD card slot. It is the second SIM card slot that doubles up as the micro SD card slot. Apart from that, the phone is actually quite good. It did heat up, like I said, my power usage day where I spent the entire day on the phone, be it GPS, Twitter, and of course coordinating with my teammates in office throughout the day. The phone did heat up. When you play a lot of games, it did heat up. In the 20-minute demo that we've been trying to shoot on this video, it has a very slight temperature to it at the back. And of course, the last con, and this is of course I'm nitpicking, is the fact that you really have to calibrate the fingerprint sensor at the back very well. There are a number of features in this phone that you will completely forget about, the ones that we showed you in the settings. Some of them might just be gimmicks for you, but if you are looking for a flagship killer with a budget of 25,000 rupees, the Honor 7 is priced at 23,000 rupees, and you can definitely consider buying the smartphone.